Okay, let's get to the storm, shall we? Thank you for that update, Ryan. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. We have an update here from Ryan Hall, the weather YouTuber extraordinaire who does a fantastic job. We have been covering, of course, and just noting the Category 5 Hurricane Melissa, which made landfall yesterday with Jamaica, some 185-mile-per-hour winds. Here's what he had to say.
We've got a breaking update from the National Hurricane Center. This is a special tropical cyclone update on Hurricane Melissa. At 1 p.m. Eastern, Category 5 Hurricane Melissa made landfall in the southwestern Jamaica area near New Hope. This is now confirmed to be one of the most powerful hurricane landfalls ever recorded in the entire Atlantic basin, with 185-mile-per-hour winds and a central pressure of 892 millibars. Those numbers are historic.
Historic numbers, he says, and we have some video, guys. Let's go ahead and put that up there on the screen now that it has made landfall. You can just see some of the images that came out of Jamaica and some of the damage already. We're still in the initial phases of learning exactly what happened. They say that Cuba actually evacuated some 750,000 people ahead of the storm, but you can see, the infrastructure and some of the images that were coming out of Jamaica, and also, noting just generally like the overall damage and, oh my God, I mean, that's just so terrifying, right?
Yeah.
In the middle of the Caribbean Category 5, one of the most powerful storms literally ever recorded. So it's pretty scary that this is happening. Not to mention, as I said, that at the very same time that you can see, oh my, look at that, difference in the image here. It's just totally nuts. And what I think Ryan and others were noting was the level of the intensity in the storm. So obviously there's some big, domestic questions here. First of all, this is just the beginning of hurricane season. We are in the middle of a government shutdown. Are the Weather Service and the National Oceanic Administration and others who track some of these hurricanes, are they going to be fully up to staff? But, one of the domestic angles that I just think nobody's really paying attention to are all of these thousands of service members who are in the middle of the Caribbean. Put this up here, please, on the screen. It says Hurricane Melissa collides with the U.S. military mission in the Caribbean. Military campaign against the drug cartels, alleged. I love how they say
alleged drug cartels.
So-called drug cartels in Latin America could soon reckon with the natural disaster and humanitarian crises in the region. 8 warships collectively carrying 6,000 troops, several dozen aircraft are assembled in the region for the Trump administration's military strikes, but many of the personnel are also trained apparently to respond to natural disasters, serving on ships with a long track record of doing so in the Southcom area. The Hurricane Melissa obviously is going to cause a tremendous amount of damage in the region. Kind of one of the long-standing things that the U.S. would always do is when there's a hurricane in Haiti or somewhere else, they'll show up with a big show of force, drop off a bunch of aid. So it's a genuine question here as to whether they're going to do anything or whether they're just going to stay parked there to try and blow up as fishermen drugs boats as possible. That's one. But second is just it highlights that despite this, the fact that it is hurricane season, these thousands of service members are in these waters, and the USS Gerald Ford, one of the largest aircraft carriers in the world, is headed there right now as we speak. And all of them are just going to be sitting in these hurricane-prone, situation. It's dangerous, number one, no matter what. And then, of course, it gets to the for what question, which, of course, we've covered here extensively.
Yeah, and so the Navy says they're monitoring the storm, of course, and will are working to make sure that they're not, directly impacted by it. But yeah, wouldn't that be great if the U.S. military actually, like, when the storm passes, they're like, what? Instead of doing regime change in Venezuela, we're going to go to Jamaica.
Yeah,
we're going to disembark, and we're going to help everybody clean up here. We're going to really throw our back into this because we're all one people here. We're all one hemisphere. We're all together. Trump could even go over and throw the paper towels at people. He loves doing that. I don't expect that's going to happen, but I guess anything's possible. Meanwhile, the strikes continue. It does seem like they've moved more to the Pacific side.
Yes, very lately they have.
Yeah, lately
that's right.
They've moved. There's striking boats on the Pacific side, and as we've said before, like whether the boats have drugs on them or not, like most likely the people on the boats are actually fishermen, like fishermen who are either paid an enormous fortune to make one run, or are told you're doing this run for us, or we're going to kill your sister, or a combination. Don't do this run and we'll kill your sister. Do the run and we're going to give you $20,000. which is more than you make in like 5 years.
Yeah, this latest one, we're not exactly sure even where it took place. They said it was in international waters somewhere in the Pacific Ocean near the coast of Mexico. And apparently, even though 14 people were killed in the attacks, they said that there was one person who survived the strikes. According to Hegseth, Mexican search and rescue authorities, quote, accepted the case and assumed responsibility for coordinating the rescue. The condition of the survivor remains unclear. Mexico's Navy said that it had dispatched a patrol boat and an aircraft to safeguard human life at sea. The Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum at this morning said, quote, we do not agree with these attacks, said she had asked the country's foreign minister as well as representatives to meet the U.S. ambassador, and says, quote, all international treaties need to be respected. So that's some 57 people now who have been killed in the strikes. The overall, picture of the strikes is it just makes no sense, in a lot of different ways, because all of this presumes a naval campaign or a campaign at sea for drugs. I mean, literally yesterday, Ryan, after being sent this report, the 2025 National Drug Enforcement, DEA estimate mentions Venezuela exactly 7 times. Of those 7, they all talk about Tren de Aragua. They only mention street-level drug trafficking, street-level, small-level drug trafficking. It has no mention of fentanyl. I read extensively through the fentanyl section that was provided to me of this 2025 thing. The entire fentanyl section is focused on Mexico and land routes to the United States via the border. These boats, this is trifling. It's not, it's literally, if anything, actually, listen, I don't want to sound like I'm defending cocaine or anything, but if you're going to use the fentanyl pretext, if the boat's coming from Colombia, that's actually a good tell that it doesn't have fentanyl in it, because that means it's straight up Colombian, pure cocaine. That's the pure stuff. That's probably what these people are paying for, right? So again, I don't support cocaine. I would like for it to be burned at sea.
If the boat comes to Mexico, then it could get blended with the fentanyl.
So if the boat goes to Mexico, it's actually a different story. And from what I read, again, this is our own government. This is, by the way, Donald Trump's DEA put out this report just a few short months ago, and I'm reading through the fentanyl section last night. They have the whole thing mapped out, even to the interstates of where all of the fentanyl is coming from, including the Chinese precursors that are making their way to Mexico. All of this, actually just spoke yesterday with a very knowledgeable source about what was happening inside of Mexico. Apparently, Sheinbaum and others have pretty significantly cut down the amount of fentanyl coming across the border. There's 2 reasons. Number one is the border is much more close, so there's not as many migrants coming across. Makes sense, of course, so the drug traffickers can't take advantage of that. But 2 is actually there's been a Mexican deployment to the U.S.-Mexico border, which is not entirely shutting down. I mean, it's, not feasible to say 0 amount of fentanyl, but a much smaller amount of fentanyl is currently making its way to the U.S. So most of these are just show of force strikes for a purpose which remains, entirely mysterious unless you start to look at regime change in Venezuela, even though these are happening in the Pacific Ocean. Not that anybody apparently even keeps track anymore. Also, if this guy survived, so then why wouldn't you go get him? Why wouldn't you go send him to court?
Some cartel leader over here,
Of course. You remember that case of piracy? I was thinking about that recently. That movie, Captain Phillips, the USS Maersk, Alabama, and they captured that, I forget exactly his Somali name, but they captured the pirate. FBI arrested him. He was repatriated to the United States by the FBI. He was actually arrested by FBI agents, I'm pretty sure. Or he was transferred to the FBI custody. He was put on trial, actually, here in the I think he's in the U.S. federal penitentiary right now on the charge of piracy. So if you do survive the attack, presumably you would want to take that person, prosecute him, put him at trial. Instead, they're like, no, he can go back to Mexico. So then why did you kill him, right? It makes no sense.
No.
So,
yeah, and I was talking to somebody who did just recently left the Coast Guard doing drug interdictions in the Caribbean. And he was saying that you generally can tell a fishing boat, not a boat that's carrying drugs from a boat that is just generally used for fishing. Fishing boats will have kind of more people on them. Drug boats, they've got the extra motors, and you can kind of see. He's like, but oftentimes it looks like they're gauging just by kind of trajectory of the boat. And he said they would do that as well. Like you'd look at the trajectory of where the boat's going, and that would be your first clue. And he'd say somewhere, they'd be right about half to 3/4 of the time on those. Because what they do is they go up to the boat and be like, hey, this is Coast Guard, stop. You know, we're going to board you and search you. And then they'd search and be like, oh, okay, we were wrong. Sorry. Go on about your business.
Interesting.
But if you're just bombing them from the air, yeah, you're going to be right half to 3/4 of the time. You're going to be wrong 1/4 to a half of the time.
And this is all in international water. Nobody even knows where this is. Nobody knows where it took place. They say it's off the coast of Mexico. Where, you know, to what extent? Literally, no coordinates, nothing. Like just a picture that's released by Secretary Hegseth from the department, you know, from the DOD. And you're just like, okay, you know, that's the only information. And that's just to show everybody the bias to implicit. You know, why is the Washington Post saying against drug cartels? It's not even true. Like, there's no evidence that that's true.
Right.
It's crazy. Like, they just take this stuff and they run with it. So even with Venezuela, like nobody interrogates the central premise at the heart of this entire thing. And it's ramping up. This is all, you know, it's slowly happening. And I think actually this week will be a big jump point for Venezuela, not just because of the hurricane, because the hurricane, like I said, the military is actually going to have to make a choice. Do we leave here and kind of abandon the pressure campaign on Maduro, or do we try and go do some humanitarian assistance? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But that, you know, the resources are finite. That's why all of this does connect together.
Yeah, and it shows how quickly the conscience of a country can be corrupted. Because when you're watching like Duterte in the Philippines, where he's just going around just executing drug dealers in the streets, like you can imagine how in the Philippines the debate would have turned to, well, was that a fruit seller or was that a drug dealer? Rather than,
I'm pretty sure that did happen at the time, if I remember.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
right, that's what the debate would shift to, rather than, we don't want death squads just extrajudicially killing anybody. Like we've tried to develop a civilized society. Let's try to keep that. And so you can see it in our own national conversation. Oh, is this a drug boat or is it not a drug boat? Rather than, let's just not have death squads from the air burning people alive.
Yeah. It's who knows? Who knows where things are going to go in all of this? But everybody keep an eye on the hurricane. Obviously, first of all, just with the people of Jamaica, it's horrific, who have to deal with that. And then we have our own troops who are in the waters. They themselves, the United States military, are going to have to make a choice, all while this escalating air campaign against Venezuela continues. Hopefully, Ryan and I'll have some more reporting on that later on in this week. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.